Regret is an unfortunate part of life. All of us have those decisions that we made or didn't make that still keep us up at night even years later. What could have been different? How could I have been different? These are questions that I think are normal and natural, and The Alters wants to explore that with its interesting sci-fi take on what is essentially a traditional base building management type game. But is it any good? Or is this game one I regret playing? Let's talk about it. You know, something I guarantee you will not regret is liking the video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel. This has been a crazy year for video games. It feels like there's been a handful of games, the most notable one being Expedition 33, games that are in traditionally niche genres finding relatively wide appeal. To me, The Alters is no different. It's a base building, resource management type game, which is not a game I'm usually into, but it's so well dressed up with its sci-fi story that even if you're not a fan of this type of gameplay, I think you'll find it very engaging. And for what it's worth, as someone who does not normally play these types of games, I did find its resource management base building to be fairly interesting for the most part. You play Jan Dolsky, a man who was supposed to be a part of a crew sent into space to find Rupidium, some mystical magical resource that's going to save the world because, as is always the case with these types of stories, Earth has fallen into absolute disrepair and we need to fix it. On entry though, every single person dies but Jan. After doing what he can to get his base back up and running, he does find Rupidium and gets a call from his superiors on Earth telling him to use the quantum computer in his ship to create alters, alternate versions of him that were generated through different life choices at pivotal moments in his life. These alters are different. They're not Jan in the same way. Sometimes he became a scientist, sometimes he became a technician, a miner, a botanist, a medic. How convenient that all of his major life decisions resulted in such drastically different career choices. It is a really cool idea, though, and a really cool story. The core question presented is, these technically are all Jan Dolsky, and yet at the same time they're all individual, unique humans that have to somehow learn how to coexist with one another while also coming to terms with the reality that they know, the memories that they have, aren't real. They're all just a figment of some quantum computer's imagination derived from these potential forks in life. It's a really cool premise that I enjoyed, but wish they had explored a little more completely. At the end of the day, this story really is about Jan coming to terms with himself. It's not really about his alters. Yes, they all have little storylines that they go on, and those do actually have pretty satisfying payoffs. But I don't know, I guess I just thought, especially with the way the game opens, especially with this whole idea of branches and life, that there was going to be a more sort of meta commentary at the sci-fi level. That the game would maybe restart or something, where Jan now is a new Jan with all of his old memories. The ultimate payoff of the story is that even though the Jan that went on this trip is relatively unremarkable in comparison to all the Jans he could have been, that he is the Jan that he is, and we are made by our experiences, and rather than focusing on the past or what could have been, we should look towards the future. Honestly, I would call this a fairly cliched trope, and to me is the most basic of outcomes to the narrative. It's something that I feel like I've seen and read a lot in other similar media. There's nothing wrong with it, but I guess I just felt like they were setting up for so much more. In addition to Jan's core struggles, though, there is the wider struggle of the Rupidium, the corporation that's trying to get you to find it, and the alters that you're creating. What's going to happen to them when you get back to Earth? Is the corporation going to destroy them? Is it going to harvest them to research? Things like that. So narratively, there is a lot going on. And credit to the voice actor. They had one person play all versions of Jan, and the diversity that they were able to get out of technically the same character is really cool, and I think really is the core interesting part of this game. These Jans all feel like unique and different characters. You can sometimes forget that they're all technically supposed to be the same person. And they even forget that too. Factions will form, some will like you, some will not. There is a forced decision that you have to make, and maybe this just says something about me, but I found the response to the decision to be a little heavy-handed. To me, the decision was clear. Sure, there were downsides to either choice, but the upsides of one far outweighed the downsides of the other, and it's always frustrating to me in games like this. I understand that they have to design it in such a way that no matter what, this character is going to like this decision and dislike that decision. But that always frustrates me when I can't really understand their point of view and just makes it feel forced. So to me, it felt more like a writing contrivance than it did a true rift or decision, just because I couldn't really understand the other side of it. All that said, this game does raise a lot of interesting questions philosophically. What does it mean to be a person? What does it even mean to be real? If you have all these memories of a life that technically never existed, does that somehow give you less value? Does that make you less valuable if you do suddenly start existing? Who's the real Jan? Is there such a thing as the real Jan? It's a really interesting game, and honestly, at the end, it felt just a little short. Right as it felt like the game was really about to dig into a lot of its themes, it was over. I wish it was longer, but I understand why it's not, because while I did enjoy the gameplay, I don't think the gameplay could have maintained the story for much longer. The game takes place over a number of acts, and between each act, your base travels from the location it's in to a new location, because you're trying to outrun the sun on this planet, which will just absolutely cook you if it rises while you're still there. So the gameplay loop is essentially get to a new place, go out and survey it, find deposits of minerals, gases, build the infrastructure to mine them, connect them back to your base, collect resources, build up whatever magical thing you need to give you the capability to then travel onward before the sun rises. You only have so much time in the day though. Everything you do takes time, but thanks to your different Jans, you have help. Based on their life decisions, they will have skills. Some might be more efficient at mining, some will be more efficient at crafting resources, some will be more efficient at growing food. This was another cool idea. Which part of yourself do you want to bring forward? You only get a handful of Jans out of a much larger number of potential ones. And this also, I felt, could have been explored a little more. Unfortunately for me, it was very clear which Jans I wanted to make, because it was clear which ones would give me the most benefit to my resource gathering and mining. Narratively, though, there could have been a lot more interesting reasons to bring forth different Jans, and I wish they had pushed on that a little more narratively. For example, in the timeline where one of your Jans becomes a doctor, he's actually able to find and research a cure for the mother of Jan who dies in every other Jan's timeline. Some Jans leave home, some don't, staying with their family. I wish there was more push into uncovering the differences in Jan's life from a narrative perspective that would maybe encourage you to take a Jan that doesn't provide too much benefit on the resource side, but does provide a lot of benefit on the narrative side. That really wasn't presented, and so for me it was always just, this guy will help me do this better, so I'm going to make him over that one. It would have been so much more cool if they had really made choosing which Jan to create a more central narrative element for more of the game. Also, there's not a lot new to discover as you go from act to act. Sure, the areas become a little more complex to navigate and explore, but there's really not much new in the way of equipment that you need to craft or materials that you need to gather. And so by the time you get to Act 3, it's really quick to set up your mining operation, and then it almost felt like I didn't even need to do anything. It just was so fast, and it felt a little unbalanced, especially with some of the upgrades you can get that allow for stations that will automatically gather materials. The resource management and base building aspect of the game really falls away in the second half. I think if they had balanced it a little better, potentially added more complexity as you went, then that would have opened the game up for a longer runtime, giving them more time to explore some of the themes and stuff from a narrative perspective, and could have led to an even better game. As it stands though, The Altars is still pretty great. They found a way to wrap what I normally don't find too interesting from a gameplay perspective with really cool sci-fi themes and topics. And honestly, the base building management side is pretty fun. I don't know if it was the pressure of having a limited number of days and then having a limited amount of time each day, but it's one of those one more turn type games. When the day ends, there's always something you wanted to finish, but you didn't have time to. And so when you wake up, you just want to get to it. And the game only saves when you sleep. So once you start a day, well, you might as well finish it because the game's saved and you don't want to have to redo those few minutes of gameplay. And then suddenly hours go by and you've spent 2 weeks gathering resources and building your base and talking to your yawns and doing all this stuff. It's a really engaging gameplay loop with a really engaging narrative that is all good, but to me fell just short of being something truly great and memorable. I'd love to see them either expand this game with DLC or build some kind of a sequel. I don't know if a sequel could really work without just feeling redundant, but I think it would have been so great to really push the boundaries a little more on the narrative, adding more narrative weight to some of your base building and yawn creating choices. I just feel like there's so much potential here that went untapped. And while what we got is good, it's just sad to think about what could have been. What do you think? Is The Alters the game of the year for you? Let me know in the comments down below. What's your biggest regret in life? Leave a comment. Share with random people on the internet. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video.